So welcome to the compositing stage. We have created three very simple render layers. Now we will blend them together in what we call an additive blend mode, so that when two layers are put together, the additive process will actually brighten those pixels up. So if you have 2 plus 1 plus 2 is 5, so the value is higher, and that's kind of cool because you get this stacked glowing typical thing that a CRT monitor would use for free. So that's a very easy composite. We will look into some glows. We will use the sweep actually as a luminance mask, so we can only see the planes in that area that the sweep is going over with. So as an animator, you didn't need to really think about where the planes are and make sure that they are not visible. No, that is compositing, that's the cool stuff. So this is some medium to advanced compositing, and I hope I can redeem my very basic modeling skills here. Alright, come on. Let's start some compositing. Okay, so we're done with rendering. In the last episode we created a radar overlay, the blips and the sweep, and now we're going to actually composite these elements together and give it this CRT look, so that when you put it on the screen of a CRT screen, it will actually look as if it's a phosphorus CRT screen. So we're going into compositing, choose use nodes, delete the render layer, we already did them. We're going to add an image, open the image, we go to our rendered footage from the previous episode, render 4, click the first one, AA. Then we'll select them all, open, and what Blender does then, it's automatically sets it to an image sequence, and it has counted how many frames there are and it sets these values. That saves a lot of time. We're going to add a viewer. I could enable Node Wrangler, but I can't be bothered, to be honest. Now this is what I think is a shortcoming in the Blender compositor. We have a read node with all these layers, but all the other nodes don't take any notice of the channels, so you have to duplicate them and tell them which channel to output, which also works, but it gives a lot of clutter. And I like working from top to bottom, overlay, then the blips, and then I like the sweep, because the sweep is in this case a bit of a different thing. We're going to use it as a mask as well. As I said, we're going to do an additive composite. These are all on a black background, so we can add them together. And then we can later add them onto the live footage. So we take a mix node, and we're going to put this one into that one, and it's an add operation. It's always good to see your progress in the meantime. V is to zoom out, so there we go. We can see that if you hold Alt and middle mouse button, you can drag. So you can see it adds them nicely. You have this little edge there lighting up. Cool. And we have the other one. We have the sweep that we want to put on top as well. It's also an add operation on top of the others. And there we go. And we're done. No. Yes, this is the most rudimentary comp that you can make, but it's far from perfect. First of all, everything is has the same intensity. That doesn't happen on a CRT screen. The reason why is that they put a little thin layer of phosphorus on the back, and electrons hit it, and that's what makes them glow. But the phosphorus is never the same thickness, so it's either brighter or darker in certain areas. It wears out over time. So it's not perfect. This is an LCD look. At the same time, this plane is outside of the sweeping radius of the radar. So it shouldn't be visible, same as this one. So we're going to use the sweep, the gradient of the sweep, as a mask to mask out everything that's outside of it. Now, how are we going to do that? It's quite simple actually. Since it is luminance information, it's on a black background and the green channel there, we can use a luminance key. And in other compositors you could just shuffle out the green to the alpha and then you have your alpha matte. So we're putting that in there. And now we're going to take another mix node, but that's a normal mix. And we're going to mix it with black. We'll take the matte output in there, and this needs to go in the bottom, and this needs to go to black. So what this mask does is everything that is bright will be shown, everything that's black will be replaced with black in this case. Now my problem in this situation is that it shows too much. This is still visible in a way. So we need to actually do a little of adjustment. Take your curves tool or color ramp, whatever. It's color grade, sorry. It's up to your choice. And I bring up the blacks so I can. That's a bit too much. Maybe I should have used the color correct node, more control. That's just a tiny bit, yeah, something like that. So it's not perfect. Yeah, I like that. Yeah, we can tweak it all we want, of course. I also think that at this stage we can brighten this edge up just a little. So let's take a, I always have to teach you how the color ramp works, and everybody seems to know the curves. So I'm brightening the top up. There we go. What is the highlight? If you hold Alt and your right mouse button, then it will show you where it's actually at. So I don't need to be here. Push that. Look at that. Yeah. Maybe I do add some more. No, that will do, I think. Yeah, otherwise it will go white. And I will start with a first glare in there, or glow as it's called in other compositing software. Go all the way down, set it to high. So yeah, that's cool. That really blows it out already. Nice. But now obviously we don't see the overlay, which is a massive important part. So we'll take another add node, put it in there, and we'll take the overlay again and we add it on there. And since this is an equal operation, I can switch it, keep a nice flow. I always add the compositor at the last instance. So yeah, that is kind of nice. Let's crop forward to where we have some of those blips visible. Something around 24, I believe it was. No, even further, 30. You see that's blowing out nicely. That's kind of cool. We're getting to the blips. There we go. I want to see how it looks if it overlays. The compositor is a bit slow always. That's a massive drawback on the Blender compositor side. It's all doing it sequentially, and it's not really the fastest way to do that. Alt V. So yeah, we see that where this V, Alt V, where this bar hits it, it's even brighter, and it goes. Yeah, that's nice. We have a nice glow there, but it's a bit too perfect. Like I said, screens, CRT screens don't work like that. So we're going to add some texture to it. We go to the texture here, click on New, drop this one down. Where is it? Usually you could select a texture here. Oh, sorry. The type over here, texture clouds. Make it a bit, something like that, 0.65, something like that. we'll see what it will look like. Shift A, texture, so, and we'll select in the drop down this texture. This is a big texture. We're going to duplicate this, and I also want one that is very small to have this pixelated noise like texture. Well, if it's 0, then it's 0. That's perfect to me. Up the depth just a bit, so that's a bit blacker. And there we go. We duplicate that and we select that to texture. We're also going to add those two together. Mix RGB. Add that one to that one. And now if we bring in the viewer, I would love, by the way, Blender, if I select a node and press 1, that it will connect to that node. Not Control Shift click with Node Wrangler. No, just click 1. Okay, yeah, well, I think we need to grade this with a curves adjustment. No, Shift A, curves. That one, and well, we'll add it. I don't know whether we need it, but I want this to be darker, the large one. Why is it not really showing up? Is it so wide over here? Or did I not select? That's texture 1, yes. That is texture. We do have to pixelate it, that is nice. But I want the cloudy added on top. Oh, it's not on add, it's on mix. There we go, yes. So now what we're going to do is multiply this on top of our immediately composited footage here. So we're going to duplicate this, set it to multiply, there we go. So let's render it out. Now you see instantly we have these dark little spots. That is a bit too dark, by the way. I'll add that in there, tweak it a bit more, something like that, and maybe bring this up as well. Add a bit more texture to it, yes. So we see these tiny little dots in there, and if we look at the global picture, Alt, come on, render it out. We'd see that it also has these cloudy areas, and the render is still set. That is a bit annoying. I'm going to set the render to 2K to conform to the image. So you see that's adding nicely. So now we have the whole image in view. Am I happy with this? Can we tweak it just a bit more? Get some more brights in there. I need more darks, I think, because this is very tiny, so there will be maybe adjust the scale. I don't see too much of it. I want it a bit more cloudy, so drop the scale to 0.15. Will that do? Render, compositing. Yeah, now you see that we have this gradient. How do you call it? We went from 0.65. It's compositing, and it's almost equal, but if we drop it to 0.15, it gets more of this swirly look, and it is not perfect anymore. We have these little tiny dots in there of worn out pixels. Well, they're not pixels, of course. Fatigued phosphorus. We'll add another glare after this to emphasize some of the other nodes, and then we are pretty much there. Not streaks, fog glow. And drop the threshold. Look at that, that is perhaps a bit too bright. Increase the threshold just a bit. That looks nice. Yeah, now we go back to over the planes, see how that looks. It's fading out nicely, that's cool. Where it just hit, it's still bright, it's still afterglowing, that is cool. That is how an old phosphorus CRT monitor works. And yes, people, I'm that old, I actually worked with that. Yeah, that is nice and bright over there, so that's cool, yeah. What I maybe think though is, let's add a blur on the not a bilateral blur, just a regular blur. On this texture, just blur it 1 or 2 pixels. See if it gets a bit softer. It's a bit too in my face right now. Yeah, that subtlety works nicely, yeah. And I add the same blur on the overall. Yeah, that looks nicely. It's a bit out of focus because these screens are never perfectly in focus. They're always soft to begin with. Yeah, so we have this nice fall off. We have these nice little, where a lot of information is. We have this afterglow around the text. It's subtle, and that's what compositing is all about, being subtle, but it's there. See how it's not perfect anymore. If you have just a straight line and you do a glow, it's too perfect. Look at that. There's more information there. So that's basically the composite of it. It's a very simple asset, but as soon as you composite it over live footage, it really kicks it home. Is there anything more that we can do? Well, we can tweak it until hell freezes over. Well, I think that this gives you the gist of it, and then we go to rendering this out and tracking it. To render it out is just, we're going to select, I want it not to have an alpha, we don't need that, but I do want the 16 bits, and we can get by with a PNG in this case, since it's just one flat render. So we render that animation out, and then we see you in the next episode where we do the whole tracking thing.